Today we're talking about how to handle Q&A with confidence. So often, and I'm sure you can relate to this, when you're in front of a room after doing a presentation, then you open it up to Q&A and you maybe don't get any questions or they fall flat, or at the very end you kind of go, and that's it. So we want to make sure that you are equipped to handle questions the best way possible. So I have got 8 tips actually on how to do this. First things first, welcome questions. You want to treat them as a sign of engagement. And one way that you can do this, if you're in person, lean toward your audience. Don't walk back and look almost like you're afraid of questions. Move toward the audience, and you could even raise your hand up high, almost as a sign. It depends on how many people are in the room. You don't want it to be awkward. Now, if you're seated, you could also lean in a little bit more. A lot of times people finish their presentation and they just collapse in the chair because they're so grateful it's over. But you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you lean forward to show that you want questions and thank them. A way that you can do this, by the way, is to say, what questions do you have? Don't say, do you have any questions? Because if you say, do you have any questions? Then it sounds like there's a yes or no answer, and you're less likely to get questions compared to if you say, what questions do you have? It invites and makes you say almost, it gives off this feeling of, I want you to ask questions. Number 2, pause before responding. This is a particularly important tool when you don't know the answer right away. A 1 to 2 second pause when we're presenting may feel like a lifetime, but it's actually so great for our audience because, first of all, they don't even know the difference. A 1 to 2 second pause is nothing. It gives people a chance to absorb what you said. It actually shows control. And it's an incredible way to showcase even more credibility because it shows that you are not afraid of pausing and just standing there or sitting there in front of people. That is a great way to give you a chance to think. And it also can help you to avoid rambling, which might be a tendency to do if you just start immediately with answering and then you're going around in circles. One of the things that I'd recommend as a third step is only if needed, clarify the question. If it's unclear, repeat or reframe it. Now, this is not if it's unclear. If everybody heard it, like if it was, what city are you from? I mean, that's not something where it's, oh, let me repeat that. If it's something where it's a 2 or 3 part question or you're unclear, then start with either a try at what they asked. So I, what I'm hearing you say is XYZ. Or you could say, could you repeat that to make sure that I'm understanding? But I would lead with at least giving it a shot. So for example, it might be, so you're asking about the budget from last year versus this year. Did I get that right? That can be a great technique. Number 4, be concise and focused. Give clear to the point answers. Don't drift into a second presentation because sometimes this happens. And by the way, one of my tips for when you do notice yourself rambling is to stop, pause, and say out loud, my point is this. The pause helps you to gather your thoughts and think about what your point really truly is, and then say, my point is this, because that helps not only you recalibrate, but it helps the people around you recalibrate and say, she has a point. Okay, number 5 is bridge the question back, or rather, use the question and then bridge your answer to bring it back to your key message. So basically, bridge it back to your key message. Even if the question is off track, connect your response to your main theme. You want to make sure that you use those questions. This is particularly helpful when it is a subject that might have a lot of people passionate about, or there might be a lot of differing opinions on it. You want to make sure that you keep bringing it back to your message. And then handle tough questions calmly. I cannot say this enough. There might be times when you're going to be tempted to get defensive or you might get triggered. So, first of all, know your triggers in advance and then just be honest. If you don't know the answer, just say, I'll follow up. I don't know the answer, but I will follow up. Or here's what I do know. For anything lingering beyond that, I will get back to you and I want to make sure to get your name and email so that I can get back to you at a proper time frame. So if you'd like to see me after the presentation, that would be really helpful to me so I can grab that and get you what you need. That is also a really important thing is to make sure that you follow up. If you say you're going to, make sure that you keep your word. Number 7 is to engage the whole room. A lot of times, what happens is we answer to the person asking the question, meaning we keep looking at the person. I remember being in a presentation where I felt so bad for the guy who was presenting. There was a woman in the front row that kept hijacking every answer that he would say. She kept asking for clarification and, well, what about this? And what about that? And part of the reason is because he kept looking at her. So he was giving her permission to keep talking. So if we start with the person, I recommend that you start with that 3 to 5 seconds of eye contact, which is the optimal amount of time per person when you're presenting to make them feel included and part of your presentation. Move to then another person with your eyes, and then another person and another person. And I definitely wouldn't recommend, especially if the person is asking a lot of questions and maybe they're even a hostile questioner, you don't want to end your answer looking at them because that is going to be the surefire way for them to jump back at you because not only do they have eye contact, but they have silence, and that's going to tempt them to jump in. Number 8, set boundaries. If the time is short, let people know that you'll follow up offline for a longer discussion. So, for example, tell them in advance, okay, we've got time for X amount of questions, or we have 10 minutes for questions, and then make sure that you actually stay within that time frame. And I'm going to give you a bonus, number 9, as a tip. Number 9 would be, this is probably one of the most important, is don't fall flat after Q&A. Don't just say, all right, thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. Have a great night. You want to bring that back at the very end to your main message. So something like, thank you all for your questions today. Once again, it's so important to remember that we've got to focus, number 1, on budget for 2026. And that is the entire focus of our message today. And I hope that you walked away with some valuable insights that you can use in your job. A nice bow that wraps up the whole thing. So remember these tips, especially when you're preparing for a presentation, because there is nothing like prep that will help you to feel more confident in the moment. So I will rapid fire repeat these again. 9 tips. Number 1, welcome questions. Number 2, pause before responding. Number 3, clarify if needed, but only if needed. Number 4, be concise and focused. 5, bridge back to your key message. 6, handle tough questions calmly. 7, engage the whole room. 8, set boundaries on the time. 9, make sure that you wrap up with a strong close back to your key message. So those are my tips on Q&A. Hope you found those helpful. If you did, I would love to know which one resonated most with you. And as a reminder, I have got great tips, or rather tips. I've got great tools for you on my YouTube channel. Please continue watching the podcast or listening to it so that you can stand out as a wonderful communicator that commands the room and projects authority. And as a reminder, if you know anybody who hosts events, I would love to be connected. And frankly, I would love to be connected just to get to know people better. So if there are people that you know that are executives, or maybe you're an executive at a company, I would love to connect with you to learn a little bit more about your culture and what's going on, because I find it super helpful to help me make better podcast episodes for you. Have a great rest of your day. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.